Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Today we will discuss an ancient symbol full of mysteries, the Star of David, also known as the Seal of Solomon. Have you ever wondered about the origin of this emblem so closely associated with Jewish traditions? Although it is strongly linked to Jewish culture, it transcends the boundaries of this culture and is recognized in many other cultures around the world. In this video, I want to take you on a journey through the various origins of this fascinating star. While many believe it is exclusively connected to King David and the Jewish people, the reality is that its history is much broader and connected to different peoples and cultures. Let's explore its roots, revealing that its essence goes beyond what is commonly imagined. Take the opportunity to support the channel with likes, comments, and, if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming content. Together, we will uncover the fascinating past and the ongoing significance of the Star of David, a timeless symbol carrying universal stories and interpretations. The hidden origins of the Star of David. What is the Seal of Solomon and the Star of Renphan? Although popularly known as the Star of David, this symbol is called Magen David in Jewish tradition. The term Magen means shield or buckler, while David refers to King David, a central figure in the history of the Jewish people. Thus, Magen David translates to Shield of David, not Star of David as commonly thought. This symbol is widely recognized as a representation of both Judaism and Jewish identity. However, it also has historical associations with esoteric practices and ancient occultism. Its shape is characterized by a hexagram, formed by the overlap of two equilateral triangles. Unlike other traditional Jewish emblems, such as the menorah, the lion of the tribe of Judah, present on the flag of the Israelite tribe of the same name, the shofar, or the lulav, the so-called Star of David, was not originally an exclusively Jewish symbol. The hexagram is, in fact, a geometric figure of great simplicity and universality, used by various cultures throughout history, often as a decorative ornament. It is interesting to note that in some churches located in the Galilee region, the hexagram was used as a decorative element, showing its use in distinct contexts. In addition to its geometric aesthetic, it is crucial to understand that symbols, even seemingly simple ones, carry deep and often multiple meanings. In the case of Magen David, it became a powerful emblem of perseverance and unity for the Jewish people, transcending its historical and cultural origins. Its adoption as a symbol of the Zionist movement in the 19th century further reinforced its connection to Jewish national and religious identity, solidifying its place as a globally recognized icon. Some scholars argue that the term Seal of Solomon was incorporated into Jewish tradition from Islamic magical literature. However, there is some difficulty in determining whether the phrase Shield of David originates from Islamic mysticism or if it dates back to older Jewish practices and beliefs. Others, in turn, maintain that both the terminology and the esoteric philosophy associated with the symbol have Jewish roots predating the Islamic period. Among the arguments supporting this perspective, there are references in the Talmud mentioning a hexagram engraved on the ring known as the Seal of Solomon. This mythical artifact would have a symbolic connection to divine power and mystical protection. Additionally, the role of Jewish alchemists stands out, as they acted as mentors and influencers of their Muslim and Christian counterparts. A figure especially relevant in this context is Maria the Hebrew, a philosopher and alchemist from Alexandria who lived between the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, known as the Opener of Paths. Maria developed alchemical concepts that were later assimilated and adapted by Muslim and Christian alchemists. According to some interpretations, these concepts can be graphically associated with the symbolism of two opposite triangles that form the hexagram. Although the explicit use of this symbol was consolidated after her time, its philosophical and symbolic connections were already present in Maria's teachings. This interaction of cultural and mystical influences over the centuries suggests that the hexagram, as a symbol, transcended religious and cultural boundaries, acquiring distinct meanings in different contexts. Still, its association with Judaism eventually solidified, primarily due to its later use as a representation of Jewish identity and spirituality. The hexagram, as a symbol associated with mysticism and Jewish tradition, became widely disseminated in Jewish magical texts and amulets only in the early Middle Ages. This historical evolution has led many contemporary scholars to suggest that Islamic mysticism directly influenced the use of the hexagram by Jewish Kabbalists, particularly in medieval Spain. In this context, the discussion on the origins of the so-called Star of David raises a crucial question. Does this symbol truly represent the Jewish people and King David, or is it merely a symbolic allusion to him? To explore this question, I will present the main interpretations of the roots and meanings of the Star of David. Starting with the interpretation most widely spread among Jews, the rabbinic explanation suggests that the Star of David, or hexagram, originated from the name of King David. According to this tradition, blacksmiths of the time sought to honor King David by incorporating his name into a shield. Some also argue that the blacksmiths wished to engrave David's name on all the shields of Israelite soldiers as a way to symbolically protect the army. According to this version, the blacksmiths used the Phoenician script, a precursor to the square Hebrew script, to form David's name. By working with the ancient characters, which have linear and angular traits, they would have created a pattern that eventually gave rise to the design of the hexagram. Thus, this shape would be both a stylized representation of David's name and a symbol of spiritual and military protection. Although this explanation is widely accepted in religious circles, it is not unanimous among scholars. Many argue that the popularization of the hexagram in Jewish contexts was a gradual process, influenced by intercultural contacts and esoteric practices. However, the symbolism associated with King David and his relevance to the identity of the Jewish people helped solidify the hexagram as a powerful emblem of unity and faith. During this attempt to engrave David's name on the shields, something unexpected occurred. The letters that made up the name ended up merging in a peculiar way, originating what we now know as the Star of David, or hexagram. This transformation becomes even more intriguing when we analyze the Phoenician script, which precedes modern Hebrew. The name David in Hebrew is formed by three letters, Dalet, Vav, and Dalet. The interesting detail is that the letter Dalet, especially in the archaic script, has a shape that resembles a triangle, almost identical in its geometry, while the Vav, although not triangular, is positioned between the two Dalets. Thus, we have two triangles that, when overlaid, result in the characteristic shape of the hexagram, one triangle pointing upwards and the other downwards. Within this tradition, the fusion of the two letters Dalet is seen as the symbolic origin of the Star of David. It is important to note that in Phoenician writing, the name David was pronounced as David, maintaining its essence but with distinct traits and sounds from modern Hebrew. This interpretation gives a geometric and almost accidental character to the emergence of the symbol, suggesting that its form was a natural consequence of blacksmiths attempting to represent the name of David on battle shields. In addition to its graphic significance, the resulting hexagram eventually acquired a strong symbolic dimension. It came to represent divine protection and the connection between the spiritual and earthly realms, with the upward-pointing triangle symbolizing human aspiration to the divine, while the downward-pointing triangle reflects the descent of divine energy into humanity. According to rabbinic tradition, rabbis point to this as the origin of the Star of David. It is often confused with the Seal of Solomon, which essentially uses the same symbol. The distinction between the Star of David and the Seal of Solomon is subtle. Some argue that Solomon, influenced by idolatry and pagan practices he engaged in, distorted the original symbol associated with his father, David. From this perspective, Solomon deviated from his father David's faith by worshipping pagan gods and building temples dedicated to these deities, which led to the modification of the symbol's meaning. The Star of David, formed by two intertwined dalets, was transformed into a superimposed form, while the Seal of Solomon presents an interlacing. There is also another interpretation that associates Solomon's alteration with his relationship with several women, particularly foreign and idolatrous ones. In this view, the symbol came to reflect the masculine and feminine, with the upward-pointing triangle representing the masculine and the downward triangle symbolizing the feminine, or vice versa. It is believed that this change was influenced by Solomon's involvement with women of Canaanite and idolatrous origins, reflecting the excessive attachment he developed to them. This symbol seems to represent the relationship between man and woman. The image of the Star of David and the Seal of Solomon that I have presented to you illustrates that the distinction between the two is quite subtle. Many believe that the Seal of Solomon has often been associated with rituals of magic and occultism. According to some accounts, Solomon became a practitioner of witchcraft, and this seal was linked to a ring he supposedly possessed. Regarding Solomon's mistakes, this is well known and mentioned in chapter 11 of the Book of Kings. In addition to marrying the Pharaoh's daughter, Solomon fell in love with several foreign women, including Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, Canaanites, and Hittites, also Canaanites. These unions went against God's instructions for the Israelites, who were to avoid relationships with these pagan nations. However, Solomon yielded to the influence of these women, accumulating 700 wives and 300 concubines. As Solomon grew older, his wives influenced him to worship the gods of pagan nations, turning his heart away from the path of God. He even built altars for Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and for Moloch, the abominable god of the Ammonites. Solomon did what was considered evil in the sight of the Lord, following the gods worshipped by his foreign wives, and even erected an altar for Chemosh, the detestable god of the Moabites, on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Moreover, he allowed his wives to offer incense and sacrifices to these deities, practices that were seen as abominations before God. These actions demonstrate Solomon's departure from the faith of his father, David, resulting in behaviors that deeply displeased the Lord. Returning to the discussion about the hexagram known as the Star of David, it's interesting to note that the Bible does not explicitly mention the use of this star by the people of Israel as a symbol of David. On the contrary, the scriptures often associate a star with idolatry, a practice adopted by the Israelites who strayed from the true faith. The book of Amos, for instance, addresses this issue clearly, and the theme is also mentioned in the book of Acts. It's noteworthy that a Jewish seal from the 6th century was found in archaeological excavations in the city of Sidon, featuring the Star of David. However, it's important to highlight that this period, the 6th century BCE, was marked by various practices of idolatry among the Israelites. The prophet Amos, who lived during this same century, mentioned a specific form of idolatry associated with a star, attributed to the pagan deity or demonic entity known as Renphan. In chapter 5, verses 25 to 27, Amos directly addresses Israel's idolatry, delivering a severe rebuke from God. "Did you bring me sacrifices and offerings during the 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? No, you carried the tabernacle of your king Sikut and Chiun, your gods of star, idols which you made for yourselves. Therefore, I will send you into exile beyond Damascus, says the Lord, whose name is Yahweh Elohim, God of hosts." In the Almeida Bible translation, the passage reads as follows: "Did you offer me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? Instead, you carried the tabernacle of your Moloch and the statue of your images, the star of your God that you made for yourselves. Therefore, I will take you captive beyond Damascus, says the Lord, whose name is the God of hosts." From an alternative perspective, one could argue that both the Star of David and the Seal of Solomon would, without exception, represent a star. Some might claim that for these cultures, the star did not necessarily have a fixed shape, but that its interpretation varied according to the views of different peoples. However, this hypothesis is questionable, considering that civilizations like the Akkadians and Sumerians of Mesopotamia in the Middle East used a similar symbol to represent the sky, that is, a star. Thus, the Star of David, also called the hexagram or the Star of Renphan, would essentially be a representation of pagan origin that was eventually assimilated by the Israelites, as indicated in the book of Amos. From this perspective, the symbol would not be related to King David, the seal of Solomon, or any of these icons, but rather to a pagan deity known as Renphan. It is no coincidence that the hexagram appears in various cultures as a pagan symbol and, at times, associated with magical practices. I would like to hear everyone's opinion in the comments. Which origin do you consider more likely for the Star of David, the Star of Renphan, or the Seal of Solomon? I emphasize that I have presented various interpretations of the origins of this ancient symbol to provide a broader perspective on the subject. Regarding the question that often arises today about what the true symbol of the people of Israel would be to represent their nation or identity, I share my view. Although the Star of David is widely recognized, I believe that the symbol most cited in the Bible as representative of the people of Israel is the menorah. Thank you for watching the video until here. May God bless you all, and see you soon.